This one is balanced and operating on a positive paradigm. Of course, you understand what balance is, or the principle of polarity. We understand balance also in the form of dialectical materialism. It's dialectical and historical materialism, but dialectical materialism, or dialectics, the unity and struggle of opposites, the unity and struggle of opposites. When we say opposites, we're just speaking on, of course, opposing forces. Because as revolutionaries, of course, we focus on change. 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 Again, the unity and struggle of opposites is to create change. That is the point of it. Like I said, balance and operating on a positive paradigm. We understand the yin and yang. You have your yin and yang symbol. Of course, you know that the yin and yang symbol is something that there's a little bit of the yin inside the yang, and then there's a little bit of the yang inside of the yin. That people always say, well, that's how it is and that's how it's been. But one thing we know that is constant is change. So we know that no, it hasn't always been like that, and it will not always be. But one thing we know that is constant is change. So we know that no, it hasn't always been like that, and it will not always be that way. It's just a point of what instrument are you going to be in the change. Of course, we're speaking on, when you speak on balance, we're talking, of course, of two opposing forces, of course, trying to have some equality. But of course, we know that good don't necessarily need to have a particular balance. We're not balanced good and evil. We are here to destroy evil, because that, of course, will be the balance. And of course, like I said, we operate on a positive paradigm. On opposing forces, I'm just going to use and hip-hop, we're going to use both of them, but just saying, in dancehall they have something called they call it counteraction. When people battle, they call it counteraction. And then they have something called alongside. So, two artists can perform battling each other, or two artists can perform just with each other. Of course, they also go back and forth. If you think of the hip-hop cipher, you have a cipher where people are battling, but then you also have a cipher where people are just demonstrating their skill. If you think of the African dance, you have a circle where people are coming into the circle dancing, but they're not necessarily battling each other. So you have this opposing force, but we're operating on a positive paradigm. We're operating on a paradigm that we want the cipher to be live. We want the African dance, the village, to really be off the chain that night. We're here to do away with evil. That's why we're trying to focus on a positive paradigm. So when we say balance, we're speaking on balancing opposing forces that are good. We're creating change. Okay? Dealing with balance on a positive paradigm. We're dealing with a positive yin and yang. One of the things that capitalism does is it makes us stupid, and it makes us stuck on extremes. A lot of times it has us on an either or type of mentality. That's why we're on a either or extreme, when we know that it's not always this or that, when you can include both. But as I say, we're not here to balance good and evil, because good and evil is only chaos. We're speaking on balancing the harmony of good. Balance good and evil, because you're always on an either or extreme. We must realize that not only is, like, if something good happens to me, I don't have to want something bad to happen to someone else. That's not necessarily balanced. If something good happens to me, I can begin to wonder what else good will happen to someone else, because that is a balance also. We're balancing on a harmony between between good and evil. So when we're speaking on the unity and struggle of opposites, our opposing forces are not on a capitalist extreme. We're not speaking on the extreme of this or that, the extreme of you should or you shouldn't. Of course, there is that dialectic as well. Don't get dogmatic in your analysis of it, but then at the same time, we must understand we're operating on a positive paradigm. And operating on a positive paradigm, the opposing forces, the unity and struggle of opposites, or the opposing forces, the yin and yang, are not in extreme opposition to each other. So like I say, something good happens to me, something good can happen to someone else. There's a balance in a positive paradigm as opposed to something good happens to me, and then I have to go on some extreme and something bad that's to happen to someone else. Because as I say, there is no harmony between good and evil, only chaos. Harmony is on the balancing of God, or the balancing of good. When you balance good, that's when you're on a positive paradigm. That's when you have balance and not chaos. Because going back and forth on the extremes of good and evil, of course, you're going to have chaos. And that's more evil. Chaos is evil. Confusion is on a positive, and operating on a positive paradigm is because we speak on getting back to our once divine nation. That in our divine mind, that our dialectic is not tit for tat, good over bad, or anything like that. The balance is on a positive. We have two children. The balance is not one child goes to school and one child doesn't. As in one child gets to go to college and one child. The balance is one may go to school and want to be a doctor, and one may go to school and want to be a lawyer. One may go to school and be a doctor, one may go to school and be an engineer. So this is balance on a positive paradigm. 400 years plus unorganized, disunified. So now it's time for 400 plus years of organization and unity.